The desert wind carried secrets, whispers of Pharaoh's rage. Moses, once favored, now a fugitive, defied Pharaoh for his people. A loyal friend warned him, Pharaoh's soldiers were mobilizing. Moses must lead his people to safety, the desert his only path. Word spread quickly Moses was in danger. Fear gripped the Israelites, but Moses spoke of a promised land. His words ignited hope, uniting them for the Exodus. Women gathered belongings, men prepared, urgency in the air. Pharaoh's soldiers were closing in, they had to escape. Darkness descended, stars shimmering above. The Israelites moved like shadows, Moses leading them away. The city slept, unaware of the unfolding Exodus. The desert loomed, a challenge they were determined to face. The night concealed them, but dangers lurked in the shadows. The desert night was cold, fear gnawing at the Israelites. Moses prayed for guidance, bearing their hopes and dreams. The wind whispered of danger, but Moses remained resolute. Dawn painted the desert sky, the journey continued, the sun beat down, the heat relentless. They walked in silence, driven by hope for a better future. They moved forward one step at a time, determined to find freedom. A cloud of dust appeared, fear rippled through the Israelites. Moses signaled them to stop, the enemy was closing in. Moses stood tall, determined to protect his people. The chase was on, he would not fail them. Pharaoh's chariots thundered across the desert. The Israelites watched in terror as they drew closer. The chariots, a sight to behold, intensified the chase. The desert wind carried the sounds of pursuit. The Israelites were running out of time. Moses looked back, knowing they couldn't outrun the chariots. He raised his hands, pleading for divine intervention. The Israelites joined in prayer, their hope rekindled. They believed they would be saved. The chariots closed in. The Israelites were trapped. Moses scanned the mountains, searching for a way out. The Israelites looked to Moses, their last hope. He would lead them out, or they would perish together. The chariots gained ground, their spears glinting in the sun. The Israelites felt the hot breath of pursuit on their backs. The Israelites stumbled, exhaustion taking its toll. Their hopes of freedom seemed to slip away. Whispers of despair rippled through the ranks of the Israelites. Their initial hope had dwindled, replaced by a gnawing fear. They looked back at the approaching chariots, their hearts sinking with each rotation of the wheels. They were trapped, with nowhere to turn. The mountains loomed before them, an impassable barrier. The chariots closed in behind them, a relentless force of destruction. Some began to question Moses' leadership. Had he led them into a trap? Had he promised them freedom only to deliver them into the hands of their enemies? The murmurs of discontent grew louder, fueled by fear and desperation. The unity that had bound them together began to fray, threatened by the impending doom. Their expressions subtly altered, reflected the shifting emotions of the Israelites. The fear in their eyes, the downturned mouths, the slumped shoulders, all spoke of their dwindling hope. Their faces, meticulously sculpted, conveyed the depth of their despair. Their faith was wavering. The desert wind carried their whispered doubts, their fears, their accusations. The air grew heavy with the weight of their despair. The sun, once a symbol of hope, now seemed to mock them with its relentless glare. The desert, once a refuge, now felt like a tomb. They were trapped, both physically and emotionally. Their dreams of freedom were turning into a nightmare. Just as despair threatened to consume them, Moses spotted a narrow passage through the mountains, a sliver of hope in the face of overwhelming odds. He raised his staff, pointing towards the opening. His voice, though strained, rang out with renewed determination. He urged his people forward, promising them a way out, a path to salvation. The Israelites, their spirits lifted by this unexpected glimmer of hope, surged forward. They stumbled and scrambled over the rocky terrain, their exhaustion momentarily forgotten. They pushed and shoved, driven by a desperate desire to reach the passage before the chariots closed in. Their fear was replaced by a surge of adrenaline, a desperate hope for survival. The Israelites, their bodies straining with effort, their faces etched with determination, scrambled towards the passage. The ray of sunlight illuminating the opening, created with a carefully positioned lamp, symbolized the hope that had been rekindled. The chariots were almost upon them, but the Israelites were close to the passage. The charioteers shouted, their voices filled with rage and frustration. They lashed out with their whips, but the Israelites were too close to be stopped. They poured through the narrow opening, their hearts pounding with hope and fear. They had found a way out, a chance at survival. The desert, once their prison, had offered them a path to freedom. The narrow passage wound its way through the mountains, a treacherous path of jagged rocks and loose scree. The Israelites scrambled through the darkness, their bodies bruised and battered. The air was thick with dust, making it difficult to breathe. The sounds of the pursuing chariots echoed through the passage, a constant reminder of the danger that still lurked close behind. They stumbled and fell, their exhaustion taking its toll. Children cried out in fear, their small hands gripping their parents tightly. The elderly struggled to keep up, their frail bodies protesting with every step. Yet they pressed on, driven by the desperate hope of reaching the other side, of escaping the clutches of Pharaoh's army. Their limbs scraped against the rough clay walls, their faces contorted in exertion. The darkness of the passage, created with carefully placed shadows, added to the sense of claustrophobia and danger. The faint sounds of the pursuing chariots, created with sound effects, heightened the tension. The passage seemed to stretch on forever, a tortuous labyrinth of rock and shadow. The air grew thinner, the dust thicker. The Israelites coughed and choked, their lungs burning, but they dared not stop. They knew that the chariots were still close behind, that their only hope lay in reaching the other side. They had to keep moving, no matter the cost. Freedom was within their grasp, but the path was perilous. Emerging from the mountain passage, the Israelites found themselves on the shores of a vast sea. The Red Sea stretched before them, a seemingly impassable barrier. Its waters shimmered under the relentless desert sun, a beautiful yet daunting sight. The Israelites gazed at the expanse of water, their hearts sinking. They had escaped the chariots only to be confronted by a new, even more formidable obstacle. A wave of despair washed over them. They had reached the end of their journey only to find their path blocked. The murmurs of discontent began anew, their fear and exhaustion giving way to anger and frustration. They turned to Moses, their voices filled with accusation. Had he led them here to die? Had he promised them freedom only to deliver them to a watery grave? Their postures slumped, their faces etched with despair captured the sense of hopelessness. The vastness of the Red Sea, created with a shimmering blue backdrop, emphasized their isolation and vulnerability. The mountains behind them, a reminder of the arduous journey they had just endured, added to the sense of entrapment. The desert wind whipped across the sea, carrying the salty tang of the water. The sun beat down, its heat reflecting off the surface of the sea, creating a blinding glare. The Israelites huddled together, their hopes dashed against the unyielding waters. They were trapped, with nowhere to turn. The chariots were surely close behind, and now there was no escape. As despair threatened to engulf them, Moses raised his staff towards the heavens. His voice, though filled with weariness, rang out with unwavering faith. He called upon God to part the waters, to create a path through the sea. He prayed for a miracle, for a way out of this impossible situation. The Israelites watched him, their hope rekindled by his unwavering belief. A hush fell over the crowd as a powerful wind began to blow across the sea. The waters churned and roiled as if responding to Moses' plea. Then, slowly, miraculously, the sea began to part. A path opened up before them, a dry corridor through the heart of the Red Sea. The Israelites gasped in astonishment, their fear replaced by awe and wonder. Their expressions transformed from despair to wonder, captured the miraculous nature of the event. The parting of the Red Sea was a visually stunning spectacle. The walls of water towering on either side of the path added to the sense of awe and the divine intervention. Moses turned to his people, his face radiant with hope. He urged them forward, into the heart of the sea. The Israelites hesitated for a moment, their eyes wide with disbelief. Then, with renewed faith and determination, they stepped onto the dry path, following their leader towards the promised land. The waters of the Red Sea, once a symbol of despair, had become a pathway to freedom. They walked through the parted waters of the Red Sea, the towering walls of water on either side a testament to the miracle they had witnessed. Each step was a passage from slavery to freedom. The sun rose in the east, casting a golden glow on the path ahead, as they escaped Pharaoh's grasp and crossed the impassable sea. Now, they stood on the threshold of a new life. Relief and disbelief mingled on their faces. They had survived. They were free. The desert, once a place of fear, now welcomed them to a land of promise. Their hearts filled with hope and triumph. They had been given a second chance, a new beginning. The journey to freedom had been arduous, marked by fear, hardship, and loss. Many had fallen along the way, succumbing to exhaustion, hunger, and despair. Their sacrifices were not forgotten. The Israelites carried the memory of their fallen comrades with them, a heavy burden that tempered their joy with a sense of sorrow. They knew that freedom had come at a price. They looked back at the Red Sea, now returned to its natural state, the waters concealing the remnants of Pharaoh's army. They remembered the terror of the chase, the despair of being trapped, the miracle of the parting waters. They had witnessed the power of God, both in His wrath and in His mercy. They had learned that freedom was not simply a gift, but a hard-won prize. Their expressions, a mix of triumph and sadness, captured the complex emotions of the moment. The calm waters of the Red Sea, now a symbol of both deliverance and loss, provided a poignant backdrop. The focus on the faces of the Israelites, meticulously sculpted to convey a range of emotions, emphasized the human cost of their journey. The desert wind whispered through the dunes, carrying the echoes of their past suffering. The sun, though warm on their faces, could not fully dispel the shadows of their memories. They had found freedom, but they had also lost much along the way. They knew that the journey ahead would be challenging, but they were prepared to face it, together. They had learned the true meaning of freedom, and they would never take it for granted. Moses on the Run adventure brought the epic tale of the Exodus to life in a unique and engaging way. The charm and tactile quality of these heroes allowed for a deeply emotional and visually captivating portrayal. Simple yet expressive heroes created a world both familiar and fantastical. Viewers of all ages were drawn into the heart of the story. The dramatic parting of the Red Sea and quiet moments of reflection were rendered with powerful emotional impact. The final image of Moses, full of quiet strength, reminded us of the leadership and faith that guided the Israelites to freedom. The Red Sea and rising sun symbolized hope and new beginnings. The simplicity of these crafted heroes enhanced the story's emotional impact, inspiring viewers to reflect on freedom, faith, and perseverance. Moses on the Run showed the power of storytelling to connect across generations.